Hello and hello everyone, my name is Lucy and welcome to Books and Brushes. This is the August wrap-up part 2. Now I'm assuming that you've seen the August wrap-up part 1. If not, where have you been? What are you doing? You might want to go check out that video first because that describes the first 3 books I read this month. So this is part 2 as it says in the title. So I'm looking at you. If you haven't seen the first one, go back and watch that and then come back here. Okay? So everyone that's left, we're all caught up? Excellent. Let's talk about the next 3 books and finally wrap up this August. Now the next book I read, so this is the 4th book I read in August, was a book my friend gave to me. So I met up with my friend and she mentioned that she had this book that she wanted me to read, that it suited her to a T and that she just wanted to share it. So we went to the pub and she brought this book along and she just said, here, read it. And this is Not That Easy by, and forgive this butchering, Radhika Sangani, I think. Now this book is quite a departure from what I normally read. This book is about a girl in her 20s who's finished uni and is now in the world of apprenticeships and internships, searching for the career that she aspires to. She wants to be a journalist, she's a writer, and she expected her 20s to be so big and grand and fun. She expected all the sex, she expected all the laughs, and it's not really cracked up to what she thought it would be. At the beginning of the story, she is virginal and she just thought everything would be better. So she goes out of her way to seek these thrilling, exciting, fun, adventurous and spontaneous experiences that she thought she should have. This book obviously contains a lot of sex, a lot of words, bad words, sex and all that. So this is an adult book rather than a YA or anything, so do remember that. And that whole description of a girl in her 20s thinking it wasn't all it cracked up to be describes my best friend to a T. And so this girl goes on a mission of dating. She wants to slut it up, she wants to go full on 21st century woman, owning the word slut, going out there, enjoying herself, having fun, doing one night stands, no attachments. Things get rocky, she bumps into a lot of encounters, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it describes her journey through this process. She also writes down her experiences in like a journal for her blog, for her job, view of society on women and what we should and shouldn't do. It's a very modern, young, hip kind of story. What did I think? I thought it was alright. I had fun reading it. It was okay. It's just not my type of book. As you can tell by the type of books I like to read, I like things that are really morally and emotionally deep, and I like fantasy, and I like oppression and dystopian worlds. I like rising up and strength, and this is not that. Did find the main character and some of the situations a little bit cringy. I knew that this was what it is and I didn't disagree with all the decisions the main character made. There were some things I was like, yeah, okay, I get why you're doing this, but do you have to be so... Do you have to? Like, I don't have any problem with her mission of going out and having lots of sex. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just, she's kind of cringy. The way she talks, the way she acts is just a little bit, I don't know, childish, a little bit silly. It just wasn't my kind of thing. Like I said, I had fun reading it. It was pretty quick to speed through and read. It wasn't my type of thing, but if you love the kind of fun, flirty, modern, contemporary stories that are, you know, full of sex and fun and whimsy and all that kind of stuff, then maybe this book is for you. Now next up we have Gone by Michael Grant. Yes, this is the buddy read. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. My fingers are actually really killing me from holding up all these books. So if you are unaware, me and 2 other booktubers, Brandon Scott and Nikki from I Read Past My Bedtime, decided to buddy read the Gone series, starting with Gone in August. Now this is Brandon's favourite series, so it was a reread for him, and for me and Nikki it was a first time read, first impression story. So I've been really interested to see what Brandon and Nikki have said. Me and Nikki have spoken quite a lot over the course of reading this book and what we think of certain things, which is really fun because I've never read a book alongside a peer before, and it was just so much fun to talk and discuss certain things that were really impactful to us, and it was just really, really fun to do that and talk. Thanks Nikki for conversing with me. I had so much fun. So what do I think of Gone? I'm sure Brandon is dying to know. Well, you'll be pleased to hear, Brandon, that I loved this book. Well done, Brandon, you didn't let me down. Your recommendation of your favourite series was perfect. And how has this been sitting on my shelf for so long and I never thought to read it? In fact, I almost unhauled this. Well, not unhauled, but I thought about never reading it. And how? Now I've read it, I'm like, wow, I would have missed out on such a great book and hopefully such a great series. So the Gone book is about a small kind of coastal town in California, and one day all of the people over age 15 just disappear. They're sitting in class and the teachers, all the kids over 15 are just gone. Get it? Gone? Yeah. And so the kids, from the youngsters to the teenagers, kind of just have to figure it out by themselves and are left to their own devices. As you can imagine, chaos just ensues. Without the adults around, there's no one to feed them, you know, things aren't working. It's just, they're completely left by themselves, and it could become almost like a war zone. All the little kids, there are the older kids having to look after all the little kids. They really have to band together to become a society in a group, trying to feed themselves and trying to stay alive, really. They find out they're trapped in like a bubble, and I won't kind of say any more than that. The reason that they all disappear is very mysterious, and you spend a lot of the book trying to figure out why they're in this situation, how it's possible. And also, a lot of these kids manage to gain powers. Is that a spoiler? I don't think so. It's definitely worth noting that powers are in this story, and it's such a fantastical, emotional, morally intriguing story. I loved our main characters. So our main character Sam and his main character girl Astrid. These two very much remind me of Connor and Rissa from my favourite series Unwind, and if I'm comparing things to Unwind, you know it can't be a bad thing. Connor and Sam both have in common this kind of moral integrity, this strength, this kind of unassuming, they don't want to be a leader but they're good at it. I absolutely love this kind of main character, it is the best thing. And also the girl Astrid, she really reminds me of Rissa. They're both smart, they're both intuitive, they both really positively influence the main character. And yeah, if these two characters can remind me of Connor and Rissa, I can't really give them much higher praise than that. We have good characters, we have bad characters, we have villains, and you understand them as well. There's one character in here that does remind me of Starkey from Unwind as well. I'm not going to carry on talking about Unwind, but you get the point. I loved all the characters in this, big and small, but morally it was very intriguing. I loved the mystery of like why they were trapped in this situation and the intricacies of how they were trying to help each other and survive, how they divided their society up and kind of who the natural leaders were. I thought it was really interesting to see like how this democratic dictatorship of a society had to form from the lack of authority. There were moments in this story where I was so thrilled and along for the ride, where I wanted to know my characters would be okay and that I was really worried for them. There were so many intriguing things that happened. It's very mysterious, very unusual, and I just thought it was a really good story. I read it pretty quickly for the size of this book, and I just enjoyed every moment of it. Me and Nikki were discussing as well some of the harder topics to digest in this story. Now obviously with all the adults disappearing, there were a lot of things that fell, including, you can imagine, all the houses with babies or dogs that would just go unleft. You're reading the story knowing those kind of things and wondering, you know, there's probably a house somewhere with a baby in it that got abandoned and starved and died, and it was a heartbreaking thing to kind of wrap your head around and to read and to understand. And so this story was so sinister and so heartbreaking and lonely and abandoned in so many ways, and it was really sad to read a lot of the time, but it was really emotionally dense and really interesting, and I thought it was a cool concept, written really well, and I can't really say much more than that. I'm still getting my thoughts around this one. It's a long story, a lot happened. I liked the fight scenes and the strategy between like the two leaders from like this war. I thought the strategy, especially near the end, was really interesting, how they were trying to trick each other and how everyone's got their own agendas. All the characters, like the bullies, were really interesting. All the children who just didn't understand what was happening. There were so many really cool characters like Lani and Mary and Albert, and characters like Little Pete. There was all sorts of representation in this book, which was really cool. So many interesting characters and points of view. It was interesting to see the friendships that Sam had kind of change as this new world formed. You know, he'd become friends with Astrid, and then there's Quinn. I just thought it was really interesting how these relationships, friendships and enemies and everything evolved over the course of this event, and how these kids kind of coped with what was happening. It was written more in a third person close-up, so like a narrator talking from the thoughts of separate characters, moving POV all the time, which was pretty much what Unwind is, to be fair. Apparently, I like that concept and they have similar vibes, so that just means that Brandon has to read Unwind, doesn't it? Anyway, I thought this was such a good story, and if you haven't read it and you love dystopians, I think this is such a great read for you, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of the series, and hopefully me, Brandon and Nikki can keep this ball rolling of our buddy read. I'd really be interested to do more kind of buddy read things and kind of discuss as we get to certain chapters. I think that would be really fun and interesting. This one was pretty relaxed buddy read because we all had a lot to do, but it was just so much fun to know that there were two others out there reading this book with me and ready to discuss. So I'm looking forward to see what Brandon and Nikki say in like their wrap-up reviews and that, and I will go out and check out theirs. I can't wait for that. Thank you, Brandon. Without you, I would never have discovered this book or had this buddy read, so thank you. And the last book I read in August, or should I say reading, because I haven't yet finished it. By the time this video comes out, I will have, and that book is The World's Strongest Librarian by Josh Hannigan. I'm gonna go with Hannigan. So if you watched part 1 of my August wrap-up, which you have, haven't you? That's what I thought. So if you watched part 1, you would know that I read Forget Me Not, a story which topic centres around a little girl with Tourette's. And as I mentioned, I've been looking for stories with this topic because of a personal relationship of mine. Someone I know very deeply and very personally has Tourette's. So I was really interested to see if I could find books that represent this disorder, because I never really see it. How many movies and TV shows can you think that have a character with Tourette's in? The answer's not enough, honestly. So this is why I've kind of been collecting and searching for stories with Tourette's. If you know of any, please let me know down below. I'd love to hear from you, and if you can't think of any, I'd love to know that too, because I think it's interesting and I think it needs to be talked about more. It's such an interesting disorder that isn't really understood, and I think it should be. So this one is a non-fiction book, surprisingly. I know, who am I? Fiction girl over here. But this is more of a memoir, so it is like a narrative. It's written not in chronological order, and it's written from his memories. So he's just talking about all the parts of his life and growing up with Tourette's. Obviously it's quite different to what I've usually read. It's a memoir for a start. It's very almost academically written. I don't know how to describe its kind of style. This main character is a librarian. He's very obsessive and academic and straight-laced, so his writing kind of reflects that, you know. He's very straightforward, and although a lot of the stories have emotionally charged content, so it's really interesting to read about this and his life experiences. I'm enjoying the story. It's not a super quick read, and I'm plodding my way through. I'll definitely be finished it by the end of August. And yeah, if you know of any stories with Tourette's in, please let me know down below. If you've read any, or if you just know of any, I would love to hear from you. And those were the 4th, 5th and 6th books I've read in August. I hope you enjoyed my second half of my wrap up and my first half. And again in part 2, I would like to know which of those 3 books most interest you, or out of the whole 6, which ones have your name written on them or have you actually read. I love our discussions in the comments. Gone Buddy Readathon was so much fun. It's just so, this is why Booktube exists, because we are book nerds, we have a passion for stories and storytelling, and there is nothing more fun than discussing stories with other people. It's why I love Booktube. So come on down into the comments and discuss with us. There's probably going to be one long or a few long threads from me, Brandon and Nikki discussing Gone in my video and in theirs, so go check them out and check down in the comments if you want to see all of our group thoughts and discussions on this. It's going to be really fun, and I will see you in my next video.